My name is Sue Aikens. I am the sole resident and owner of Kavik River Camp. For the 9 months or more that I'm totally alone out here. These are bear tracks, but this is a pretty big bear. He heard me, he didn't smell me, but he heard me, he probably saw the vehicle.
In Alaska's wild lands, Sue Aikens, a notable figure, is a determined and resilient woman who has been through some tragedies that stand as barriers to stopping her from accomplishing what she wants to achieve. Situations like being abandoned by her mum in the harsh terrains of Alaska all by herself as a child, and even being attacked by a bear could have weighed her down along the line. But she never gives up. Instead, she masters survival on her own. She shows how strong people can be when faced with tough challenges. As Sue's story unfolds, we are compelled to reevaluate our own perceptions of tragedy and resilience. Join us as we unravel the extraordinary, heartbreaking tragedy of Sue Aikens from Life Below Zero. Living a simple life in Alaska. Sue Aikens became famous when her life was shown on the TV series Life Below Zero, which aired on the National Geographic Channel starting May 19, 2013. The show highlighted her 456 unique lifestyle at the Kavik River Camp in Alaska, far north of the Arctic Circle. This remote place is around 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. The show won several Emmy Awards and continued for 17 seasons, following Sue's daily life in the harsh wilderness. Among the diverse Alaskan natives featured on Life Below Zero, this resolute woman truly shines. Although it didn't seem like she had a choice, she stayed strong to survive, because being in Alaska was the main tragedy for her. Born in Chicago, Illinois on July 1, 1963, Sue Aikens moved in with her mum to Alaska after spending her early years in Chicago. As a young girl around 12 years of age, she remembered times when her father was always moving the family from one place to another, which made it seem like he wanted to be everywhere at the same time, like a wandering spirit. Sue didn't give details on how her father's behavior affected her parents' marriage, but along the way, her parents' bond slowly faded and the marriage came to an end. Fast forward to when she moved to Alaska with her mother, that's when her life as an adventurer began. In an interview, Sue explained that it was around the late 60s and early 70s that her mother decided to split from her father, and even though getting a divorce around that time wasn't popular, she considered herself one of the most unlucky people to experience such a thing, because it was due to the divorce of her parents that she moved to Alaska. Eventually, after the divorce of her parents, her mother made it clear to her that they were going to have to move to this ice-filled land. Although she wasn't surprised by this outcome, she couldn't help but wonder what could be in store for her in the terrifying confines of Alaska. Despite her worries about this supposed new home, she was willing to do whatever it would take to adapt for her mother's sake. To her advantage, she completed and graduated from high school at the age of 13 and proceeded to learn how to fly a plane. When they finally moved to Alaska, it was hard for them to cope. At first, things were very difficult, but they had no other option than to adjust to the harsh weather and difficulties living there. For the brave young girl, it got worse because she had to deal with the fact that her mother abandoned her at such a tender age to fend for herself. She didn't let the situation weigh her down. Instead, she buckled up and had the will to survive. Eventually, she fell in love with the place, especially after she was taught the skill to hunt for food by an elderly Alaskan native who was very kind to her. He knew how to handle a rifle, and so he taught her how to handle a rifle to survive. To make a living, Sue initially trapped animals with her 32 Alaskan Malamute dogs along a 400-mile route. But she later stopped trapping, feeling bad about harming animals for fur. She even made friends with other residents, like Grizzly Adams. They were very close friends until he passed away. This Alaskan survivor loved being one with nature and craved extreme isolation. So she jumped at the chance to live in a camp in Kavik, which was 500 miles away from the closest city, Fairbanks, and 80 miles from the nearest road. Her address is just a set of GPS coordinates. Sue once said her happiest place is being alone in her head. She felt she was at her best when she was alone. Living in the city didn't suit her because she didn't like the games people played in society. The owner of the Kavik camp and Sue had connected through social media and had offered the Queen of the Arctic accommodation in the camp. When Sue first arrived at the camp in her 30s, she felt overwhelmed and even had second thoughts. The place was a mess with garbage everywhere, attracting bears. This was unusual because it was a protected area where garbage was supposed to be burned, not left lying around. Despite the initial challenges, this Queen of the Arctic saw it as a challenge to fix up the camp. She transformed the old oil camp into what she called a twisted bed and breakfast, where tourists, hunters, photographers, and researchers could stay. She had everything she needed to survive, including spare parts for her snowmobile and weapons for protection. From June to September, Sue provides support at the camp, which acts as a weather station, refueling station, and a place for search and rescue missions. There's a small airstrip where people and supplies from Fairbanks can be flown in. The camp has various facilities like sheds for fuel and generators, storage for fuel, rows of trailers, outhouses, and a big tent where Sue stays, which she calls her dining hall. She has an internet connection so she can communicate with her family and run her business. One of the scariest things about living there is the danger of wild animals. Sue knows this firsthand because she was attacked by a bear. Sue's life-changing moments. On a very unfortunate day, Sue went out to burn some garbage. The garbage had a very strong odor that could have attracted a bear because bears have the tendency to perceive smells from about 10 miles away. After burning the trash, she then went out to get some water, but it was all iced out, so she had to move further to search for a riverbank where she could get water. Suddenly, a bear attacked her, pushing her to the ground, which she called the alpha push. It kept tossing her around with its teeth, which sank deep into her skull. Surprisingly, the bear left her and proceeded to the riverbank. Taking that opportunity, she immediately dragged herself to her home to look for help after sustaining so many injuries, like a torn shoulder and a hip out of its socket. For the most part, the first aid she could render to herself was to tie her hips with a gun belt, and then she took the gun from the gun belt and went out with the intent of finding the bear and shooting it. She eventually shot the bear, but her hips kept giving her away. She initially became immobile and eventually had to wait for about 10 days before help came. Sue once told reporters that she still feels where the bear's teeth dug into her head. Fighting a bear is not a usual occurrence, and hearing Sue's story makes one wonder what it's like in the far north. Alaska captured in a nutshell. Sue's first time on camera was when she appeared in an episode of the reality TV show Sarah Palin's Alaska in 2010, where former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and her family went on a hunting trip with Sue's camp serving as their base. She also appeared in a few episodes of Flying Wild Alaska in 2011, a documentary series about the Teutul family who ran an airline in Alaska. Producers of the show Life Below Zero noticed Sue's unique lifestyle and approached her about doing a show. The producers were always looking for interesting stories about Alaska because people loved watching shows about it and the unique people who lived there. The production company BBC Studios heard about this about to be a superstar and her unusual lifestyle and thought it would make a great show. They approached her, and although Sue valued her privacy, she agreed to it as long as it was done respectfully. As time went on, she felt the producers were respectful and didn't try to change her. They simply filmed her doing what she normally does and asked her permission before shooting. She enjoyed the filming process. When filming started, Sue had already been living in Kavik for about 10 years. The first season of the show revealed just how tough and dangerous life in the wilderness could be. She faced extreme cold, predators as neighbors, and the constant challenge of staying alive. The show became a hit, and viewers couldn't get enough of her interesting adventures in the wilderness. In one episode, after recovering from the surgery that she had due to a bad phone that broke her leg in 2011, she spent about 3 months recovering, and was anxious to see what would become of her camp. This queen returned to Kavik with a rifle in one hand and a shovel in another, only to find that someone had stolen a significant amount of fuel, about $5,000 to $6,000 worth of fuel she was supposed to use for the whole winter. With a storm approaching and only a limited supply left, she had to act fast to ensure she could survive the winter. The Queen of the Arctic was always prepared for emergencies, constantly checking for animal tracks and keeping her weapons close by. When she left the camp, she made sure to take everything she might need, including spare parts for her snowmobile, which she knew how to fix herself. Being self-reliant and prepared for anything was crucial for her survival in such a remote and harsh environment. In cases where her snowmobile broke down, she had to hunt using her legs for fresh meat to survive. She shot a ptarmigan and cooked it with butter, apples, and cranberries. As the season ended, she faced a big decision. The owner of the camp wanted to sell it, and she had to buy it or leave. Feeling uncertain about her future, she described herself as a 50-year-old fat chick trying to figure things out. With positive reactions from critics and viewers, Life Below Zero continued season after season until she had some disagreements with her producers and the government. What exactly happened? Sue's case with the producers. Sue had a rift with the producers of the show, which led to her filing a lawsuit against them in 2017. The lawsuit was against the BBC Studios Los Angeles production unit because she explained that she sustained serious injuries after falling off her snowmobile while driving across an overflow on the Ice River at 60 miles per hour and colliding with an ice heave in February 2015. This happened while filming and was later put out in the crash episode in the month of June 2015. She explained that the reason for the lawsuit was because she was compelled to do that by the producer, Aaron Millman, after knowing the danger involved. After she got injured, she claimed that the producers intentionally delayed help for her, even after knowing she was in pain, because they wanted to film the part of her showing pain for better footage. She argued that reality shows should show real events, not made-up ones. Sue also said she warned the producers about the dangers of filming there, but they didn't listen. She asked the court to give her some money to make up for what happened. But some people wondered why Sue waited until 2017 to sue, even though the incident happened in 2015. Maybe she didn't plan to take them to court at first, but changed her mind later. We might never know her exact reasons. In 2017, while dealing with the lawsuit against the Life Below Zero producers, Sue also had a problem with the government. The government opened up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling in 2017. Her camp was considered the main commercial place that was close by because it was 12 miles from the eastern borders. Sue was worried she might lose her home because there was fear that the government would take away the lease and re-auction it for others. They also made it clear to her that she had no right to the land, as she only owned the equipment structures. So in order to be safe and not be caught off guard, she quickly got another cabin in Chena, Alaska, to make sure she wouldn't lose her place to live. Despite the window of her fame getting shut, she didn't lose her value because she had already done a good job of balancing her personal life with that of being a reality star. Did the end of the show affect her life? The Queen's personal relationships away from the cameras. She had been married twice, with her first husband passing away from brain cancer. Her second marriage lasted 17 years, and they had 2 children. However, they eventually split because her husband couldn't handle the tough Alaskan lifestyle, so they moved to Oregon. Sue's fans also witnessed her love life unfold on social media, where she openly expressed affection for her partner, Michael Heinrich. She met him online. They became friends, but it wasn't until 9 years later, when Michael's marriage ended, that Sue expressed interest in taking their relationship further. Despite the distance between them, Michael lived in New York, and they managed to make it work by arranging vacations and visitations, since she didn't have any plans to live in Atlanta again. Although her children were initially worried, they eventually supported Sue's relationship, understanding her need for independence and adventure. Sue isn't just tough, she has a soft side too. She has a good relationship with her children and has a yearly ritual of sharing likes and dislikes. Her son publicly told her that he loved her and would do anything to make her happy. Sue has shown strength and survival skills on the show, but she has also suffered personal losses. Sue has experienced a lot of sadness. She lost one of her beloved pets, and then she had to say goodbye to her other loved ones. Tragically, in 2023, Sue faced another heartbreaking loss when her granddaughter Callie passed away unexpectedly at the age of 27. This loss deeply affected Sue and reminded everyone of the importance of mental health awareness. She talked about it on the show and reminded everyone how important family is to her. The cause of her granddaughter's death hasn't been revealed yet, leaving many questions unanswered. Even though Sue was upset, she spoke lovingly about her family. Others praised Sue's touching tributes to her sister and granddaughter, expressing their sympathy and wishing peace for their souls. Despite the sadness, Sue shared a heartfelt birthday message to her late granddaughter Drew on Instagram, showing her love and fond memories. Losing loved ones hurts, and it was tough for fans to see the Queen of the Arctic so sad, especially since many of them have been following her since she first appeared on TV. What made it even harder to understand was that they all passed away suddenly. Despite her pain, she found some comfort in a video of her sister from years ago. She wrote a touching message about her sister's memory, saying that even though she's gone, she'll always shine brightly in her heart. On social media, people told her they were praying for her and reminded her to take care of herself during this difficult time. Her supporters continued to send her messages of encouragement, hoping she could find some comfort during her tough time. Some wondered if she had plans to retire and move to her cabin, wishing her the best for her well-being. After seeing her emotional tribute on the show, fans were worried about her. On a different note, fans noticed her significant weight loss when the show returned in 2019. At 57, she lost about 75 pounds, which amazed many viewers. She explained that she decided to get healthier due to old injuries, like hip tears from the bear attack in 2007. Despite these challenges, Sue remains dedicated to staying active and healthy, even adapting her lifestyle to her age. On social media, people told her they were praying for her and reminded her to take care of herself during this difficult time. Her supporters continued to send her messages of encouragement, hoping she could find some comfort during her tough time. Some wondered if she had plans to retire and move to her cabin, wishing her the best for her well-being. During the summer, Sue did a lot of work at the camp. She cleaned everything thoroughly and made upgrades to the facilities. She replaced old pipes with a lighter system, built new outhouses, and put new tarps on sheds. Even though she was not a carpenter, she managed to do it all by herself. Preparing for the long winter was crucial. Since growing food in a garden didn't work out due to the weather, Sue went foraging. She found edible fireweed and even spotted a caribou, which she hunted and used for meat. Sue finds fulfillment in running Kavik River Camp. She sees it as her lighthouse, a safe haven for herself and others. She plans to stay there for as long as possible. Recently, false rumors about Sue's passing circulated online, alarming fans. However, Sue confirmed that she's alive and well, still living at the Kavik River Camp in northern Alaska. As the enduring success of Life Below Zero continues, viewers eagerly anticipate more episodes featuring Sue's wilderness adventures. Even though Sue is the main character of the show, what have the other cast members of the show been up to of late? Meet the Life Below Zero team. Chip and Agnes Hailstone are seen as a loving couple. They live in Nurvik, Alaska, a place way up north near the Arctic Circle. Agnes is really special because she knows so much about the old ways of doing things in Alaska. She shares all these interesting traditions and practices that have been around for generations. It's like she's a bridge between the past and the present. Their life in Nurvik is different from what one sees in big cities. Instead of relying on stores for everything, they rely on nature. It's tough, but they show how rewarding it can be. They show how they face challenges and celebrate successes living off the land in such a remote and wild place. Glenn Villeneuve is another fascinating person. He chose to live all by himself in a place called Chandala, which is super far from other people. It's like 200 miles away from Fairbanks and really close to the Arctic Circle. Living out there, Glenn has to rely on himself for everything. He's like a real-life survival expert. He deals with all the tough stuff in nature using his smart decisions and skills. He's tough and adaptable, which means he can handle whatever the wilderness throws at him. He's also really connected to nature. He feels at peace and happy, surrounded by trees, animals, and wide open spaces. Through his show segments, he shows us what it's like to live alone in the wild and how awesome it can be. Jesse Holmes is one tough guy who lives in Brushkana, Alaska. He's like a real-life adventurer. He spends his days fishing, hunting, and racing sled dogs. He relies on nature for everything that he does. What makes Jesse really special is his amazing connection with his 40 sled dogs. They're not just his helpers, they're like his family. They stick with him through thick and thin, helping him out in the tough Alaskan weather and terrain. He faces all sorts of challenges, from battling crazy weather to dealing with rough land. His story shows how people and animals can work together to survive and thrive in the wild. Andy Basich lives in Eagle, Alaska, near the Yukon River. He shares his home with 25 sled dogs, which are not only his pets but also his helpers. Living in the wilderness means Andy faces lots of tough challenges every day. On the show, he's seen dealing with things like finding food and surviving harsh weather. It's not easy, but Andy shows us how to be strong and smart in tough situations. Andy's story also talks about his personal life. After he got divorced from his wife Kate in 2016, his girlfriend Denise came to live with him in the wilderness. This adds a new twist to his life in the wild. His story shows the beauty and toughness of Alaska's wilderness and the people who choose to live there. Eric and Martha Mae Salatin are a young couple who live in Wiseman, Alaska, which is really far north, close to the Arctic Circle. They're like wilderness experts, showing how they survive and thrive in one of the toughest places on Earth. These two know a lot about living in the wild. They teach viewers on TV how to do important stuff like build shelters, find food, and deal with bad weather. Their segments let us see what it's really like to live out in the wilderness. Eric and Martha Mae work together as a team. They show how important it is to help each other out when you live in such a remote place. Their adventures together make their relationship stronger and show how special it is to live far away from cities. Rico DeWild is an important part of the show. He's from the Alaskan Athabascan community and moves into his family's old cabin deep in the wilderness near Huslia, Alaska. Rico's story is about rediscovering his roots and embracing old-fashioned ways of living off the land. He knows a lot about hunting, fishing, and gathering, which he learned from his ancestors. On the show, he teaches viewers about these traditional techniques and why they're important to his culture. Living in the wilderness, Rico teaches his kids about respecting nature and how to survive in such a remote place. His story shows how tough and smart you have to be to live off the land in Alaska, especially when you're connected to your heritage like he is. Rico's role in the show helps people understand more about the Alaskan Athabascan culture and their traditional way of life. He reminds us why it's important to keep these old traditions alive and respect the history of native communities in Alaska. Each person on the show has their own story to tell, giving us a peek into life in the Alaskan wilderness. They show us the hard parts and the good parts of living off the land in such a wild place. Thank you for watching this video. While you are still here, click the video on your screen to see more mind-blowing videos like this one.